Welcome to another of NJAPM's webinars. I'm Carl Cangelosi, and today we're going to have our first civil mock mediation. And today's players are first Macce Cresti.
Good morning or good afternoon.
She's a partner in Macce Cresti, which is located in Clinton, New Jersey, and she's an arbitrator, mediator, and collaborative law attorney. Some of you may also remember her as the unhappy wife in the first of one of our divorce mediation seminars, and she received wide acclaim for that performance. Suzanne English is a board member of NJAPM and is its webmaster. She practices divorce and civil mediation. Suzanne works on Hudson County's special civil part roster. Felicia is a full-time ADR practitioner serving as a mediator for the AAA, state and federal courts, and an arbitrator for New Jersey courts. Brad Ferenz was a trial lawyer for 20 years, then a judge for 20 years. After retiring from the bench, he became of counsel to Blick Law. He is currently on NJAPM's board of directors. So welcome to all of you players. And with that, I will turn it over to the mediator, Macce.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending today. So, as we've already discussed in our introduction, I've read everybody's documents. Thank you for giving me an understanding of what this case is about. I thought at this juncture it would be a good idea, since we are pre-suit, and you probably really haven't had a chance to discuss this matter together too much, to let each of you give an opening statement and a recitation of your positions. You don't have to, of course, go into complete detail, but just give the other side an understanding of your position. Felicia, I understand that you are representing yourself, or what we say is pro se. I'm going to ask you again, which I've already probably asked you about 1,000 times, and I'll probably ask you about 1,000 more times, that you are not represented by counsel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you wish to retain counsel for this proceeding?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, and you're sure?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure, because there are ethical rules that attorneys should not speak with someone who is represented by counsel. So I just want to make sure that we're not stepping over any ethical rules here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is everybody prepared to go forward?
We are.
Okay. Felicia, since you're the plaintiff, I'll ask you to begin.
Okay, I'm here hoping to resolve this matter without having to go to court because, you know, what happened to me is really serious, and my whole family has been destroyed by it, and I really feel that it's an urgent matter that, you know, should get taken care of right away. I'd rather, you know, resolve this amicably without spending, you know, years and unnecessary, you know, money with lawyers. I worked for these people. I know that, you know, they can be fair and reasonable when they want to. And so I'm hoping that they will, you know, finally use this opportunity to hear what happened to me and, you know, and compensate me. So basically, Macce, I worked for this company for 7 years, and I liked my job. It's a small company. As you know, it's called the Gardens House of Clean, and they manufacture natural products for hand sanitizing and cleaning, which was a huge boon during COVID. In fact, we couldn't keep up with demand. It was actually really crazy, and I thought I would have this job security. I was doing really well when the executive order came down to work from home. We all switched, except for some people who, were on the production line. Obviously, they had to be there to manufacture. I understand that they staggered those hours so that they weren't in danger. But for me, I do customer service and sales. So I switched to home, and I was extremely productive. I think we were up over 300% for that time period in the spring from March and June. So, I was doing an amazing job, I think, based on the numbers and productivity statistics, and the feedback. So it came time for June, when we had all these phases, executive orders coming down from the governor, and on phase 3, which was in June, the company decided that they wanted everybody to come back in person. So they said at the beginning of June, on June 15th, you have to come back. And meanwhile, I'm watching the news. The COVID numbers are off the charts. There's morgue trucks sitting outside the hospitals, tents set up in Central Park. They're taking patients from the hospitals, putting them in nursing homes. There's not enough room, so things are still crazy, but they said, you have to come back to work. So I said, why? Here I am, I'm working from home, and, look at the numbers. I'm doing a great job. Why do I have to come back? And they insisted, we're a small company. We have to get back on track and normalize. Everybody needs to be here. So I said, look, how am I going to come back when, I have a special needs? I have 2 kids. So one of them is special needs. So my dad helps me out and babysits for them and gets my kids off of the bus, and in the afternoon takes them to activities. So I rely on him, but, he's in his late 70s. So, I can't potentially expose myself to COVID. And then my dad and my husband, he has always had asthma, so he's high risk. So I said, I really, really just need to continue to work from home. You could see my numbers, like, why do I have to come back? And they promised that they would implement all of these safety measures. They said, look, we're going to put up the plexiglass partitions. We'll move your desk away from other people. We'll have hand sanitizing stations. We'll take everybody's temperature when they come in, and we'll make sure the bathroom is cleaned regularly. We'll open the windows so we have fresh air coming in. So they said all of these things, and I still said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable. But I couldn't lose my job. And they basically said, they did say, if you don't come back and sign this waiver, they called it a voluntary waiver, but there was nothing more involuntary about it, because this waiver said, if anything happens to me or any member of my family because of COVID, they're not responsible. So, I had no choice. So I had to come back. I had to sign this waiver, or I was out of a job. And
Mr. France, were you saying something?
No, I was just checking some notes to be back working.
I'm sorry, this is so upsetting.
All right, Felicia, do you want to take a break?
No, thank you. I just want to finish telling you that.
Okay, Felicia, what I think? I understand this is very hard, and I understand.
I lost my dad.
Why
I
don't
had
you?
COVID, and my husband had COVID, and my dad.
Did you go back to work, Felicia?
I did. That's the problem. I had to go back. That's what I'm telling you. I went back on June 15th because they made me. And they did not have the partitions up, and they did not have hand sanitizing stations. They just had a bottle of hand sanitizer they put in the bathroom. And they had said, we're going to make sure that it's cleaned every hour. There was no one cleaning the bathroom every hour. They didn't take our temperatures. We came in and they asked us, did you take your temperature today? And that wasn't the deal. They were supposed to take our temperatures. So, we didn't have that. And as you know, there are a lot of people, they could have COVID and they could not have symptoms. So they could not have a temperature and they could still spread it. So I thought that was ridiculous. So I came and I wore my mask. But I saw immediately when I came that there were other people, some wearing masks and some not wearing masks. So I was very nervous about that. And, you know, I just sat there and I tried to do my work, and I even went and walked outside to do a lot of my phone calls. I was totally uncomfortable there.
But then what happened, Felicia? I don't want to cut you short, but I'm gonna have to cut you short a little bit just in the interest of time, because you know we do have a little bit of a time constraint. So what happened? You said your father
So what happened is I'm there like 1 week, and then I hear, I'm like, oh no, I turn around and I see that the bookkeeper, she has a cough. So I was like, oh my God, she's not wearing a mask, she has a cough. And I went and I did my phone calls the rest of the day from my car. And I said to them, can I work from home now? And they said, you know, a lot of people cough. There's allergies. There's still other things. There's the regular flu, seasonal things going on. So, you know, it might not be from COVID. So anyway, I wore my mask. I stayed away from her. And then within 4 days later, I started to not feel good and get a cough, and I got it and gave it to my husband, and he ended up in the hospital in ICU. He's still sick. I still have symptoms, and my dad died from COVID.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Because of me, because of them.
I'm sorry.
Because they made me come back.
Okay. I know.
Not to be difficult. So are you looking for compensation for your father?
Of course, for me, for my husband, for my dad, yes.
Okay.
It's their fault.
Okay, so now that's a kind of a tricky claim that you have here. That's called a wrongful death. Now, who is his heirs?
Me. I'm his only child. I'm his heir.
You're his heir. There are no other heirs?
Excuse me?
There are no other heirs. You're it?
No, me.
Okay. Okay. Felicia, would
But
it
he
be
didn't have very much, so it's not like that's anything to talk about.
okay? But okay, would it be okay with you if we let the maybe you should take a break right this point, and we'll let the defense.
I need to get some air and some water. Thank you. I'm gonna take.
Are you well? I would like you to hear what the other side has to say. Would you like to take a break at this point, or would you like to? Are you okay to listen to what they say?
I guess I need to hear what they say.
Okay, then what we'll do is we'll
I'll just
separate
stand
into
my-
separate rooms, and okay, good. You have a glass of water? Perfect. All right, Brad, would you like to go ahead?
Do I get to say?
Certainly, and
anything? Do I get
I
to
assume,
say? Do I get to?
Susan, let me say a couple things first, and then we'll get to you, and you're going to have the opportunity to talk to me and talk to Felicia if you want in the
All
meeting.
right,
But
I
first,
want to go back about her lies. She's lying so much. And
Okay.
let's start from the beginning, okay? You should understand, Michelle, that this is a small mom and pop company. They started this 25 years ago, just this young lady and husband, and they built it into a decent sized little company. And they are incredibly environmentally sound. They care about people, they care about the environment. And in fact, all of their products pass all EPA tests. They don't use any plastics. They don't use anything that's not biodegradable. And they are top of the line when it comes to cleanliness, both inside the production and the product itself. Now, our heart goes out to Felicia. Nobody would want to be in her position. But understand, you need to ask her what her job function was. She was a sales and consultant person. And yes, there are substantial amounts of work that can be done in-house, and there's a substantial amounts that can be done out, and it must be done outside to meet people. But there is no way that the company can exist with a salesperson being only in-house. She has responsibilities. She knows this. That are going to require her to, in fact, leave. In fact, when I spoke to Suzanne, we sat down and looked at the governor's directions. We looked at what he said we had to do, and we followed them to a T. We did all those things that were supposed to be done.
Brad, may I
Everything.
interrupt you? Because I just want to ask you a quick question before I forget. It's just pertinent to what you've just said, just regarding the sales position. So traditionally, pre-COVID, Felicia's job was what we would know as, or what I know as outside sales, where Felicia would be required to go and call on people. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there were
I was
both.
mostly
There's-
phone. I just have to say, I was mostly on the phone.
Oh,
And
Felicia,
they did not follow the governor's
Felicia.
orders and do the PPE. They did not do that.
Hold on, Felicia, respectfully, Brad took notes and let you finish. Now it's respectful that you let him
But he's
finish.
lying.
That's okay. No one should be lying, but we have to let them have their chance. That's what we do here. You
This
talk.
wouldn't have happened if they did what they were supposed to.
Felicia, we won't be able to go forward. You're going to have to take, please, I'm asking you, take a deep breath. I know this is upsetting. Please take a deep breath. Please, you're going to, thank you. And we'll listen to their side. Then we will separate. Then we will separate. And if you don't want to, you don't have to talk to them again, at least for today. All right? Can we go forward?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferentz?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Michelle and Felicia, I'm sorry if this upsets you, but please understand that I represent Suzanne. I'm going to explain to you as clearly as I can the position we're taking, which we believe, listen to me carefully, that we believe we're going to be able to show if we end up by going to court. Now, you might want to get a lawyer and talk to him about the stuff or talk to her about the things I'm saying to you. Have that lawyer contact me so I can explain to that counsel exactly the position you're in.
Okay, Mr.
Because-
Ferentz, whether or not Felicia gets counsel, I don't think that that's an issue to be discussed at mediation. So please
Well,
continue with your, respectfully, please continue with your position.
I will, continue the position, but understand this is not a deep pocket. This is not somebody that's walking around with a lot of assets going to be able to pay any exorbitant amount of money. In fact, we don't even know what the demand is at this point. So the
Okay.
bottom line is we've heard a lot of accusations, a lot of inferences that we're not particularly being candid, or the things I'm saying may not be candid. Well, Michelle, there are video cameras, and we have this young lady on video without her mask. And we have on video the separations that we had between the parties of the plastic, barriers. And we have
They
just
put
so you
them up after I left. My friend there told me.
Felicia, please let him finish. This is
And-
part of it.
we have, in fact, substantial evidence and hard evidence, proof that, in fact, much of what's being represented to you, Michelle, is just not accurate. We have photographs, we have video of the separating the plastic separators, and we have her on video without a mask. We have photographs and video of every place we've got, if you will, the sanitizer. And we have an employee who will come in whose only job, not only, but whose primary job was in the morning, sanitize, at lunch, sanitize, and then when he left, before he left, he had to sanitize to make sure that all our employees were as safe as is possible. I also want to mention,
In the building, like you can't go in one way and the other. You go apart.
Suzanne?
hold it.
Suzanne, I think Mr. Ferentz has asked that you allow him to present your case. I mean, typically when you have counsel, that's what happens. So we'll let him present your
I
case.
still have a cough.
And how we followed every guideline by the state and went past the guidelines of the state to make sure our employees were safe. We were clean.
Mr. Ferentz, do you wish to have Suzanne testify or give it?
So you've got to understand something. I say this so that both parties understand. I have a client who's highly emotionally involved because she did everything she possibly could to ensure it was a safe workplace. And she also came to me and frankly paid a good deal of money to ensure that she followed the rules and guidelines and regulations that were being set down by the state of New Jersey. And she followed them. And while our heart goes out to Felicia, she was here 7 years. We provided medical, we provided vacation, we provided, insurance, medical insurance. This is an employer who cares about the employees, but the representations being made to you are simply inaccurate. I am not saying, you really can't say much more than that. I will tell you that as a point of reality, and I want you to do the math in your own head. She came back and within 7 days she was sick. How long does it take to actually get COVID? I would suspect and say to you that nobody else in the facility was sick. and that in fact, the only person that was sick is this young lady.
That
And
is
that
not
means she
true. I
had
got
to-
it from the bookkeeper,
That means
and it
she
was
had-
not
Oh, okay.
7 days.
Felicia, you know,
It
I
was
think,
10 days.
excuse
She
me,
had,
Mr.
she
Ferris,
had,
if,
yes,
I'm thinking that at this point, perhaps it's a good idea to go into caucus. What do you think?
okay. Be happy to talk
Would
to you
that be
privately.
okay with you? Would that be okay with you? I understand your position about your company, about the company that you represent. I think it would be a good point maybe to go into caucus. I will ask you and Mrs. English, it's Mrs., correct?
Ms.
Ms., okay. To step into the other room, please. And I will speak in caucus to Mrs. Farber.
Ms.
Okay, just for the sake of this discussion, can we just not pay attention, or I'll put us on silent, so I won't be able to hear you.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
just turn your screens dark, please. Just breaking out of roll.
Mhm. Right. Okay. Can I call you Felicia?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Felicia, now you said before you needed some air, maybe a drink of water. Did you want to step aside at this point?
No,
or-
no, I just couldn't deal with the lies. I had to get away from them. So I'm okay to talk to you. And I had some
Okay.
water. Thank you.
Okay, so
But
I
they
want
are
you,
lying. They are lying. That PPE equipment, he's saying he put up those barriers. It was after I left. Don't forget, I've been there 7 years. I have friends there. So they told me what happened after I got COVID and I couldn't show up to work. They panicked, and then they went and they put up the partitions that they were supposed to. And the guy that was supposed to clean, well, I never saw him sanitize 3 times a day. I mean, they claim that it was sanitized before we got there in the morning, but I don't know that he did that. And that was not there when I was there. And they did not have the sanitizing stations. Like I said, they put one little bottle, like a purse size, like I would carry around with me. They put that in the bathroom. They
Okay.
did absolutely nothing. And it was the bookkeeper. She got it. I was not the only one. That's where I got it. I told you before. I
Yeah.
panicked and I started doing calls and stuff outside and
Right.
in my car.
okay, so let's take a step back here. So as you know, we talked before, my job isn't to make decisions in this case, but rather just to sort of give you the 30,000 feet in the air sort of opinion about the case, just to help you come to a resolution as opposed to making decisions, findings of fact, things like that. Just a couple of things I want to point out to you. Another thing is, as we talked about, everything that we say in this caucus, this is what this portion of the mediation is called, is confidential. So anything that you say to me, unless you specifically give me authority to share with the other side, I'll presume that you want to be kept private at this juncture and is confidential. Do you understand that?
Well, I do. Everything I've been saying is the truth. So,
Okay.
you know, I want them to hear it.
Okay. One thing that I do want to point out to you is, I know you said before that you were comfortable representing yourself or that you're pro se. I do see
Well,
that
I'm here by myself, but I have a cousin, my first cousin that I'm very close to. He was an attorney and, you know, his whole life. And he has told me exactly what the, you know, legally what the situation is. And he says that, you know, I have a very large case here. And I explained to him that, you know, I need money now. He thinks that I should go to court. He doesn't think that they're gonna, even though they have insurance, and I know they have insurance, he doesn't think that they're gonna compensate, you know, my family, and I should go to court. But, you know, here's the thing. My husband and I, we had this job situation that was pretty bad during the Great Recession. And, you know, in 2010, 11, we both lost our jobs, had to reinvent ourselves, and you know, now we're back on track, but our house was in foreclosure. So, you know, we almost lost our house, and it took a few years, and we got a mortgage modification, and you know, we have been secure with that, and now because of this, because my husband is in sales and he got the COVID from me, and because I got it and couldn't work, we both got unemployment, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So our house is in foreclosure again. And that is why I'm here. I'm here because I can't lose the house again. And and I have a special needs kid who is on the spectrum, can't have change, sensory issues. I don't even want to get into all that, but I have to stay in the house. That is my number one priority, and that's why I decided let me give this a try. You know, my cousin told me, you know, that mediation can be really effective, especially, you know, before you start a lawsuit, that the company will have more money. They won't have to spend it all on lawyers. And, you know, maybe I could just get compensated, save my house, and not have to wait a couple of years to go to trial. But honestly, I just listened to all the lies, and I think I may have to do that.
You do what?
I may have to sue them. I may have to sue them because they're lying. They have pictures. They put up those partitions after I was gone. I'm sorry. When he said he didn't see me with a mask, well, guess what? My job is sales and customer service. I'm on the phone. And there are times when people can't hear me with the mask, and I have to take off the mask.
Okay.
So
let me jump in here for a second. So one thing that I did notice, again, from my 30,000 feet in the air, is that, and understandably, you know, like you said, you know, a lot of your family was adversely affected by this in a very.
My dad died, and my husband just got out of the hospital after. Oh.
I know, it's just
2 months,
it's
2 months.
Tragedy, just a tragedy. But you were getting, and like anybody would, I noticed that you were getting very, very emotional, and it's hard. It's hard for you to listen to somebody else saying things about you.
Lies.
So you may wish to consider getting an attorney, if only for that somebody else can be a buffer for you. In other words, they can speak for you, and this way you can not be.
You're
not
thinking,
only
I thought that I could just come here and we could work this out and I could get some money. You're saying I need to get an attorney. You don't think that they're gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to help me today?
Well, no, I can try to help you, but you said if you have to bring them to court, I think that if this goes much farther, it would probably be you may wish to consider getting an attorney. I know
well, if I have to sue them, then yes, I'm gonna be getting an attorney. Okay. So I've already looked into that. I'm trying not to do that because by the time I've been told that this case would resolve, you know, we'll lose our home.
Oh, I see. Now, counsel for the defendant said that you have not made a demand yet. Do you have a demand that you could make? Do you know what I mean by a demand?
Yeah, because I have my cousin. So, you know, what is the price for my father, for my husband's health, for mine? You know, I was thinking 10 million, and my cousin said they're not going to hand over $10 million, so you have to be more reasonable. So for mediation to try and resolve it, and I know they have insurance, I'm going to go with 3 million.
That's your demand. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you, so demand, but just let me tell you what I mean by a demand, and then you can tell me if you're comfortable with the number. By a demand is usually the number that a person is what they're asking for. That's what they're demanding. But very often at this juncture, very early in the case, they understand that they probably wouldn't get that number. That might be a number that they feel is a jury verdict possibility, something like that. So it's typical that if somebody makes a demand early on, okay, that they won't necessarily settle for that amount. So when you say 10,
well, that's why it should be 10. I mean, it's my dad's life. I may have future problems. My husband still has tiny blood clots that could land everywhere. Do you know COVID affects your heart? You're going to be at risk now. I might end up with a heart attack later on after I resolve this, and it affects your brain and increases your likelihood of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, you know, and I'm still short of breath and get a cough and fatigued early, and I'm the good one in the family. Okay. You know, my husband is still sick as a dog. My dad died. So, you know, my cousin said, you'll never get 10 million. So that's why I reduced it down to 3 million.
But would you take less than 3, or is 3 the number that you want to settle at?
I don't think 3 quite covers it, but well, it depends. But it's, you know, if they think that you know, they're gonna come in and give me a few $1,000s. That's just not gonna do it.
Mhm. So why don't I go back there and talk to the other side about something that, I'll just say that you're well over 6 figures and see where that gets us.
7 figures.
7 figures, yes, thank you. Well over 7 figures, and let's see where that gets us and decide where how far we're going for today, or if we need to regroup and come up with another strategy. Is that good with you?
Fine, but just know when you talk to them that they are lying. The pictures and the stuff that they're saying was after the bookkeeper gave me COVID, and then they realized, like, you know, they were in trouble. So, and that thing where I didn't wear a mask, I wore a mask every minute except when my customers couldn't hear me on the phone and I had to pull the mask down, and I was very upset about that. So
Okay, I understand. So why don't we do this? Why don't, without revealing anything else that you've said to me today, I think I'm going to go back to the other side, tell them you're looking for over 7 figures, and see where we go, and then how we need to regroup. Okay, is that good with you?
thank you.
You're welcome. If you wish, you could step outside at this point. I just asked. You know,
I need to. I will. Thank
why
you.
don't you do that? Okay, I'm going to call the defendants in now. Brad, do you wish to come
I
back?
can hear you, but you're going to have to turn the video on because it was
He has to turn the video
ended
on.
on your end.
Carl or somebody has to turn it on. We were turned off by master video.
Oh, Carl, I think Carl has to do that.
Well, you
Carl?
can hear me, correct?
We can hear you.
Well, until it comes on, let me ask you the $64,000 question. I've talked to Suzanne. We're not unrealistic. She doesn't want to spend the money on litigation. She doesn't have to.
Mhm.
What is she looking for?
Well, okay, so we were talking, and she's obviously, you can tell, very passionate about this, very emotional, very passionate that she is correct. This is caused by the company. So she's looking for well over 7 figures. And she's pretty confident that there's insurance. Is that correct? Is there a carrier involved with this?
Yes, of course it's insurance, but it's a $250,000 deductible. And there's no reference in the insurance policy as to whether or not it covers, a pandemic.
Can I give a little background too? Like, she was, we wanted, we've had her as a long-term employee and we really wanted to keep her. But back in May, there was 2 days that she didn't answer her phone. She didn't answer her, email. She was supposed to provide a report to us on the 22nd of May. We went back to her. We could not locate this woman for anything. And when we asked her, when we finally were able to say, like, where's the report? She said, oh, she didn't really know it was due that day. And then we said, well, we couldn't get you. She said, oh, she had technical problems. We said, well, we couldn't get you on phone. We couldn't get you on Zoom. We couldn't get you on email. And she denied that was the case. And, and it was, and then we made an offer to her. We said, like, look, we'll let you take that as vacation time. She declined that. The reason that when the governor opened up to phase 3 and allowed a 25% of people coming back, Ms. Farber was on that list because she was not performing at home. We understood that she has a handicapped child. That's one of the reasons why we went out of our way to help compensate her. But, we performed way beyond what the state said. She's right about the PVC. She's saying, oh, we put the PVC up. Well, there was nothing in the guidelines that said we had to put PVC up. We went beyond that. We did one-way systems. We did high cleaning. We required everyone to wear a mask. Ms. Farber wasn't wearing a mask. We asked everyone to keep 6 feet away. We had limited capacity in the building where we had more than 6 feet. We kept our employees 25 feet away, and we had, and that you were only allowed to use the bathroom one at a time. Most of those things she didn't comply to. And I'm not, this is a communicable disease in the community. We don't know where she got this from.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So I'm curious about this insurance issue because that's often helpful. I understand there's a $250,000 deductible and there is a policy. So basically, from what I understand, that $250,000 is basically on the company. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I have to tell you, there's no way I could tell these folks to pony up $250,000. You're not going to reach the policy. You're just not going to do that. I don't know how you could possibly reach it.
So
You
think
and I both know that they're not.
pockets because she has a
Hold on,
sad story?
hold on. They're not going to be responsible for this ancillary stuff with Pop passing away. Our heart goes out to her. You know, these people went out and provided insurance at their expense for the entire family, which included their child who's got the disabilities. And that was a pretty hefty nut that these folks were paying because they care. The entire company is based upon these kind of things where they take care of people. It's a cleaning thing. It's an environmentally sound company. They couldn't do anymore. And while our heart goes out to her, when they're looking for what, 6 figures, did you say?
No, 7.
7 figures. When she comes in for 7 figures, I just say to her, go get a lawyer. Go get a lawyer. Let the lawyer sit down with me. We'll take him over. We'll show him the photographs. We'll show him the video of her without the mask. We'll show them the regulations. Look, we want to pay something. We know we're going to pay something. It's cheaper to give her a couple $1,000s. She's worked, before she left, she generated about $120,000 worth of sales. She got a 1% hit on that. So she's got $12,000 coming to her regardless. Plus she's got some residuals from other sales made from previous years. So she's probably entitled to $20,000 of anyway, that she's not
Well,
receiving.
that would have been hers anyway.
Well, I'm not saying it hasn't been, but maybe she's not even considering that. Maybe she's got to be made aware that, you know what, that's coming to her at the end of the year when the payouts occur, when the bonuses are given, that's going to be in a check to her.
Well, are you prepared to make a couple of observations, right, from my 30,000 feet vantage point up here? You brought up.
Come down a little closer.
All right, so I'll come in a little bit. I'll be circling around for a landing here.
Can you believe she's asking for 7 figures? Come on.
I have to say this. All these cases now, this may be one of the first ones, but I don't doubt that this is going to be the last one. People are going to be very interested in how this turns out.
It's an act of God.
Do you want to be does your company want to be the first one in the newspapers?
I got to tell you, we don't even have the authority to settle for anything that she's looking for because we have to get the insurance carrier in. They're on notice, but they're not here. I'm here representing Suzanne. Nobody ever anticipated she'd come in and ask for money for everybody in the family.
But we would like to just give her job back. We
You want to?
Good employee, been 7 years. We're a small company. We've all worked together. We cannot control a pandemic. I mean, this is crazy. We don't have.
Suzanne, would you consider offering her a job back?
Yeah, we would.
Wait, she was terminated?
It was mutual. We gave her the extra time for under the New Jersey, paid time off, paid leave,
family leave, and
then she once she started screaming about that we weren't complying with all the things, which we were, and it just got crazy and she didn't come back. So but she was a good employee, and that's what I'm saying. We made accommodations to her. Like even when she disappeared for 2 days, we said, okay, well, we'll let you take vacation because we couldn't contact you. And she lied. She said she was on her computer doing things. We have programs that show if you're being active. She wasn't active. There was nothing there.
Have you ever heard
multiple?
Have you ever heard the phrase false in one, false in all? If this case goes to trial, there's at least 3 or 4 significant things she's not been candid with, and she's going to get killed. And now
you heard she's going to argue that about you as well. So that
against my advice, by the way, I've got the employer willing to offer her a job back.
Hello, I think we have reached the end of the demonstration. So let me bring back Felicia. Felicia, start your video.
Not getting anything from us, Felicia. Forget it.
What?
You're getting nothing. Buckus.
Oh, I heard that.
Felicia, I didn't have my tissues here that I usually have in the office. It was a grand performance.
Thank you.
Yes, you all did exceedingly well.
I just have to throw out there the caveat that, this is a fictional scenario and we are all just actors. So none of these facts are true.
Okay. So I have one question for you, Michelle, and then we're going to open it up to our attendees. If you're an attendee, Please raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And then I will turn on your audio, and then you have to unmute yourself. So please raise your hand if you have a question for one or all of our panelists. So Michelle, Felicia started and she talked, and of course she's not represented by counsel. When you turn to Suzanne and Brad, you seemed reluctant to have Suzanne talk. And I'm wondering why that's so, because when I did civil mediation, and I spent my whole life in business, so I was fairly comfortable doing it, I always wanted to get the client to talk rather than the attorney. So I was interested, why would you want Brad to talk rather than to Suzanne?
Because I'm always reluctant, well, because it was actually out of respect for the attorney, because if he wanted his client to just, let him do the introduction, and I didn't want that. So I wanted, first off, was respect for the attorney to allow him to be able to say what he had planned to say, because I would presume that any attorney that comes into something like this is going to have prepared statement, things that they want to talk about, and they didn't want their client to divulge maybe more than they wanted to. The other thing is that I could see that this was getting to be very, very emotional on both sides. Mm-hmm. Clearly, the defendant herself was taking this all very personally. So what I wanted to do is to try to keep things on a business tone, as opposed to two parties going to the emotional heart of it. So this woman, for as attacked as Felicia felt that her whole house was basically taken out, I'm sure that Suzanne felt the same way. Her company was being, people throwing mud at her company. This was her baby. She grew this company, we know from the fact, for 25 years. So this was just going to be on an emotional level, not a business decision. So I thought it would be best to keep it to counsel. And that if Suzanne wanted to talk, then of course in caucus, she could, talk all she wanted.
I also believe that everything Michelle's saying is correct. And I would prefer, if I'm doing it, to let the lawyer talk, and then in private caucus, let the litigant say anything they want, because the other party is not listening in. And when you're dealing with emotional issues, family issues, business issues, I think you never know what someone's going to say.
Okay.
I don't know. Can I just ask
go through
Suzanne
my
a question?
perspective. Excuse me?
I was just curious on Suzanne's perspective, because she started to talk and kind of got cut up. What were you thinking?
I was thinking of how many times I've seen my people, seeing them, the defense, bring lawyers in and always like want to spout and talk over their lawyers. And no, I can really tell the truth, even though you're there, no matter what. They, so many times they've just pushed, they don't listen to their lawyers. I mean, their lawyers are like, come on, like, let's just, and they're like, no, I'm going to, because I've got the truth and the truth is on my side. And I was going with that kind of, which I've seen a million times.
And have a half hour.
My perspective, a lot of times when I was doing it, is you get a piece of paper from each of the lawyers, they tell you what the case is about, and then you get into the actual session and you ask the client, and it turns out not to be anything like what the attorney papers said. Mm-hmm. It's something really different that's motivating the client, and just interesting. Okay, so we do have one question here. So Jay, I have turned on your audio.
So you hear me now?
Yes.
I've unmuted myself.
Okay.
Hi, you all did a very nice job.
Thank you.
Congratulate you all. But it seems to me now, we're into the actual mediation, but I normally have an organizational call where I speak to the attorneys before the first mediation. In this case, since Felicia was pro se, she would have had to have been on that call. I would think that had Michelle had such an organizational call, she would have known how emotional Felicia would have been even on that call, and it would have carried over, of course. And perhaps Michelle might have made a suggestion to Felicia to bring an attorney in at the outset, rather than let her go pro se, just because of all the emotion. And that's not to say that even with the attorney, you wouldn't get emotional, but then you still have the buffer of the attorney to speak on your behalf, Felicia. So that
No,
dealing with,
I don't think I was emotional.
you were crying. that alone
That's
makes
emotional?
that well.
Crocodile tears.
And you're right, Jay. Those are, you know, those are things that we had discussed in our setup, and I alluded to that when I said to Felicia at the beginning, and I asked her the question, Felicia, you're not represented today, correct? And I'm going to ask you probably 1,000 times today, and I gave the ethical rule, and I said I've already asked you 1,000 times, and I'm probably going to ask you 1,000. If I meant to say, at least I probably asked you 1,000 times already, and I'm going to ask you 1,000 times more that you're not represented by counsel.
Yeah, I had that situation in another case where the defendant clearly should have had counsel. And I went out as far as I could without crossing the line, I thought, in advising her as the mediator where to go to get counsel, because she said she didn't have the funds to get it. So that the case ultimately was dismissed because of other matters. But the point is, she got emotional. She was, in some respects, not too dissimilar. She had lost her mother, you know, so the facts were there. And I just said, you really got to get yourself an attorney.
So we talked about that. So, you know, because we've all had cases, right, where there's a pro se party, and that's why we bake that into this fact pattern. So how do you say to the person you should get counsel? Do you affirmatively say that? Or,
yeah, I did. I said,
yeah.
If I recall what I said exactly, I said, I strongly advise you to get counsel because I don't believe you should take the case by yourself, or something to that extent. So I went right out there. I said she really should have counsel.
Okay, let me ask a question now, which is, Felicia went on quite a bit, and she was at times then interrupting, etc. Since you were doing this online, would there have ever come a point where you would have maybe just put her on mute?
Mute?
Yeah, mute her mic.
Absolutely.
You would have done that, Brad.
Absolutely. At some point I said, look, I'm going to have to put you on mute because I want to hear from the other party. Is that okay with you? And
Michelle?
at some point I would have done it. Yeah.
Michelle, would you have done that too?
Would you would say that as the mediator?
I would. Because I think part of
They
what
don't even
we
do
do
that
as
on the
mediators is
presidential election.
I haven't
Now they
liked
do.
that
Now
part
they
of it,
do.
by the way. Part of what we do as mediators is run the show in a real sense and try to give everybody equal time and fair time and have everybody listen to each other. And if they're not listening to each other because they're talking and so interested in responding, then you're not going to be able to mediate the case.
Isn't that a bit threatening to say that rather than, you know, maybe we
Yes.
should
Yes,
meet
it is.
separately? I would rather say as a mediator, you know, perhaps we should meet separately if you're not going to.
But that wasn't the question. Question is there ever a time you might do that? I think
it
your
apply
answer-
to both sides, right? Because you could just say, look, we're getting a lot of interruptions. We're getting a lot of cross interruptions, particularly in the Zoom
Right.
forum.
Right. So let's give everybody 2 minutes.
Well, the only way I could
Uninterrupted.
see doing that is if you set that at as the ground rules at the beginning and say, you know, it could be really hard using video conferencing if anybody else talks over somebody else. So, you know, if that continues to happen, then one way to resolve that, you know, I control the system is, you know, I would have to put you on
Yes.
mute. So if you say that up front, then it's not threatening when if somebody starts to do that, you say, I'm going to have to mute you.
Oh,
Still think though, I think it's
Felicia, I don't think I'm going to say something like I have to mute you. I mean, but yeah, I agree with you 100%. But I think it's a tool we have. Just like saying to somebody, let me go into caucus with the other folks. When we did this live, we could say, let me go to the caucus with somebody else, you know, with the other party. We can separate people. I think it's a tool we have. How we use it is something we should use, obviously, with care. But it is a tool.
Can't you?
Michelle, did you want to say something?
No, I think I like the idea. Well, yeah, I like the idea of putting that as far as a ground rule. So I think I'm going to do that from now on, just to say, like, listen, I hope it never gets to this position, but just so you know, you know, if I have to.
Okay, I can't talk to you now, bye.
I may, just to keep up decorum, to keep up the you know, the seriousness of this proceeding, I may put you on mute. And I may even make a joke, you know, actually, now that Felicia suggested that, putting as part of the ground rules, maybe we even make a joke, right, about the presidential elections. Like, listen, I hope this never gets to that, but, you know, just like they did in the second debate, we may have to use the mute button.
I wouldn't do that. I would keep it more neutral, and that this is just part of our procedure, because we're in this forum of Zoom, and it's easy. It's, you know, for people to talk over and lose that when it's not your turn, I'm going to put everybody on mute. So it's just a procedure, just like.
Well, that, if you say I'm going to put everybody on mute, that's much more diplomatic and
Yeah, and it's like you're being targeted for being the naughty person in the room. It's just like, hey, to get through this, while we're doing it in this formula, you know, our common courtesy is that while you're not talking, you're muted.
Okay, so I have another question from the outside.
I like that.
Jody, if you would unmute yourself and talk.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so my question is, and this was wonderful to watch. You really did a great job, all of you. My question was, watching Felicia and all of the emotions that she was feeling and having a personal relationship with this company for 7 years, I'm wondering whether the mediator could spend a moment getting the defendant to in some way separate out the blame from the caring, because I'm wondering whether that would have calmed Felicia down a bit, at least in feeling acknowledged that she suffered a terrible loss without it being this adversarial position that has to do with blame. So I'm just wondering whether that would be something you would consider.
In terms of what the defendant should do, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When we started the discussion, I said, look, our heart goes out to you. Really sorry for your loss. I probably could have gone over it more and probably could have emphasized it more than I did. But
yeah, I wasn't feeling
just
that,
felt
sorry.
like,
No,
as
I
said it,
meant
the
more
reaction
from
on
Suzanne.
Lisa's part was, no, you don't. Look what you did to me. And I kind of in my head threw my hands up and said, all right, let's go to the facts.
Yeah, I meant,
I think
Brad,
you're right.
more Suzanne, was more the relationship, which is built on 7 years in a small company, to be able to calm down some of the dynamics
What
to
did you
allow
think of Suzanne saying that she would offer the job back?
Well, I mean, that's a whole other position that didn't come up yet, but
Right.
more in terms of, you know, Suzanne being able to speak. And so to me, watching this, one of the downsides of Brad presenting everything, you know, on a factual level was maybe to have Michelle in some way acknowledge the long-term relationship between these two women, and whether Suzanne in some way could separate out what she is feeling, of course, about being accused from how she feels toward Felicia and the loss that she suffered.
Now, Jody, everyone should know you're a therapist.
Yes.
If we hadn't guessed, you are a therapist.
Well,
and would
I
be
want you
more
to
comfortable
understand about you
doing
saying
that. Yeah. Okay. I have another question pending. So Jody, I'm going to mute you. And who was the other one?
Gerard?
Oh, Jerry.
I see Jerry
Jerry.
Scola.
Jerry, if you would unmute yourself. Jerry?
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
You did a
you.
really good job. One of the things that I have a problem with also is the person talking over the top of the other individual. I go through a kind of extensive beginning, and I guess I have a little bit of an advantage in that I wear 2 hearing aids, and I usually tell them that once 2
You're
people
not the only
start
one.
talking over, I can't hear. So that's my mantra, and usually about after the third time, then it's time to separate them.
I think one of the things you point out, which is really useful, is to take the responsibility and say, look, guys, you need to do this for me. So you're not blaming anybody, which would eliminate the problem of, oh, you're shutting somebody down. You're saying, look, I can't hear really well, or I can't focus. Would you guys mind for my sake? I think it's a good point.
So that's like what we do with depositions, right? So even though it's annoying, but we always say we're deferring to the court reporter, because the court reporter cannot take it down if everybody is talking. Please, everybody, you talk, you'll all get your chance. So that's a very good way to couch it then. Just say, in this Zoom world, it's very difficult to parse out the conversation, where normal, if we're all sitting together, of course we talk over each other and we gesture and we figure it out. But when it's these little screens, it's much more difficult. So I like that. I like that, making it as a, beginning at the, making it at the beginning, and then similarly a ground rule, and then similarly just saying as a mechanism of Zoom, we have to really be mindful of this.
These are really
Well, I
good
have
practice points. Really good practice points. They really are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
my
ask everybody nicely at the beginning.
philosophical question, more than the philosophical practice question. Most divorce mediators do not caucus very often. Some may be routinely in the beginning, but seldom during the mediation. And the more experienced the mediator, generally, the less they caucus. The style on civil mediation, on the other hand, is sometimes it's even don't have any joint meeting at all, just immediately go into caucus. But even if you have a joint session, then to break into sessions. Has that style developed because you found that meeting together doesn't work? Or is it that you just, that's the way it's done? Break into caucus.
Where is it that people have indicated there's less caucusing in family? Because maybe I'm really off, but I caucus, I wouldn't say equally, but
Well, you may do it, you probably are doing it in court connected.
yes.
But yes,
Yeah.
in private mediation where it's not court connected, very little caucusing going on, and you have emotional parties, etc. But
Well, I'm talking both. I mean, I get a good deal of private as well as court referrals. And I just found after initially talking about the issues, separating folks, at least for me, makes more sense because they can talk to you candidly about what they realistically want. The first question I ask somebody in private is, all right, what do you want? What do you really need in this case? And I
okay,
don't know
I'm
if I
just
can
saying,
ask that publicly.
right, that's not the common practice in divorce
Okay.
mediation.
All right.
You have to accept that from me.
I will accept that. I accept everything from you, Carl.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Any more thoughts about that?
That's like a whole other webinar we could do on joint versus caucus, in the civil and divorce context. So, and I actually had a presentation on it. I recently did partially at an ADR day this year. So, it's really too much. We have 2 minutes left to get into. I'll just say that in civil, the trend really is to do more caucus than joint, and especially in the employment arena. I could tell you most of my colleagues who are mediators in labor and employment do keep parties separate the whole time. And a lot of them don't even have them ever meet, even for the initial opening and intro by the mediator. I try, unless it's a sexual harassment, discrimination, or, really emotionally hotly charged case, I do like to try and start off and joint as much as I can. I think the true mediation model is joint. All of the things in our mediator toolbox that we've ever learned, and everything about understanding the interests underlying the positions. Well, how can you hear the other party if you're never in the room with them? It puts the mediator in a lot more, ethically, potentially compromised positions when the mediator is the one entrusted with all the information because the parties are never together. So there's a whole University of Maryland study that has come out, and they polled different people who use mediation, long-term, short-term, and they gathered the data, and it came out basically that people who are in mediation get the benefits from the caucus immediately, but long-term, their relationships with the other side aren't as good. The cases are more likely to end up back at court for court intervention. So, they also don't think as highly of the mediator going on because they were not with the other party in the joint session. So, like I said, that could be a whole, different webinar, but.
About that one. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I think you all did a great job. It was
Thank you, Carl.
enjoyable. And now, Michelle, you have 2 roles to add to your CV, your filmography, as they say. So thanks, and everyone have a great day. Next Monday is our next CLE webinar. And I've done so many of these, I forget what the topic is, but you'll get a notice. I assure you, you will get a notice. So take care.
Thank you, everybody. Been a pleasure.
Have a great.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Stay safe and don't forget to vote.
Yep, and happy Halloween.
Right.